Shortly. I'm just going to do a quick introduction before I turn it over to our speaker today. So hello, my name is Sarah Streifert, and welcome to the Global Primatology Conference hosted by Central Washington University. I'll be moderating our session today, and this session will be by Diana Goodrich, who is the co-director of Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest, and it should last until about 5 p.m. Before we start, I wanted to let you all know this session will be recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, then you may turn off your camera. Additionally, to make this a fun learning experience for everyone involved, I'm going to request that we follow a few session rules. One mic, one voice, only one person speaks at a time. Respect all identities. This includes pronouns, nationalities, ethnic groups, etc. This is a safe space. Don't feel discouraged. All are welcome to engage and ask questions. One question only out of respect for others and time. Please stick to just asking one question. Only speak for yourself and no one else. No name calling or derogatory comments, questions of any kind. Failure to comply will result in your termination from the session. Keep the chat clear of traffic. Please use it to only ask questions. Diana has agreed to answer questions throughout the presentation. So if you do have questions, feel free to type them in the chat as we go, and I will read them off to her. Additionally, because she is presenting from the Chimp House, if you go to your upper right-hand corner and click on Layout and go to Focus, you'll be able to get a view, a close-up view, instead of all the little boxes of all the different people. You'll have a close-up view of the chimpanzees. So with all that, and now that we're all on the same page, I will go ahead and turn it over to Diana Goodrich. Again, she's the co-director of Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the introduction, Sarah. I'm super excited to be part of the Global Primatology Conference. I just am really super impressed with all of the work that went into this and all the participation that I've seen. I've gotten to catch a couple of the talks, and it's been really interesting information. And congratulations to the students who put this on. I'm just really happy that you guys did this. So we're trying something a little bit different, and we're live at the Chimp House so that you can see the chimpanzees that we care for up close. And I'll just kind of be talking as we're watching the chimps. And the first thing we're going to do, Anna here, let me switch my camera over, is the lead caregiver of the day, and she's also the Chimp House manager, and she's going to be letting the group of 7 chimps, these were the original chimps that came in 2008, she's going to be letting them onto their big 2-acre enclosure here so they can forage for their dinner. Somebody was poking my desk. Yeah, so Anna, we have a lot of ties to the primate behavior program at Central Washington University. I went there in the late 90s when it was still under the psychology department. Anna started working with the chimps there when they were still there in 2007, and she went on to intern at the Oregon Zoo and work at the Fauna Foundation in Quebec before coming back to Washington to work at the sanctuary. So the lead caregiver position, you can go ahead and we kind of rotate. So first out is Burrito, followed by Jamie and Foxy. Negra, who's the oldest chimp at the sanctuary here. She's at least 47. And then Jody. Jody's taking a look. We have another group of 3 chimps on the other side, and they like to spy on each other a little bit. Here's Annie and Missy. So Anna and the other staff today kind of just set out a bunch of food, a bunch of vegetables for their dinner so they can forage. As you all know, I'm sure, chimps in the wild spend a lot of time looking for food, processing food, thinking about food, and it's the same with chimpanzees in captivity. So it's good to be able to kind of vary the way that food is presented to them, and so we do forages. We are located in Cle Elum, which is a little bit colder climate, so most of the forages we do are in the spring and summer months. So here's Jody. She got 2 giant red bell peppers and she's headed back inside. So the sanctuary was founded in 2003, and this group of 7 came in 2008. They were used in biomedical testing, mostly hepatitis vaccine research, and the females were used as breeders. So many of them had many babies, and their kids were taken from them when they were sometimes even just hours old. And actually, one of the children of Missy now lives with us, Honeybee, who we'll meet later. She's on the other side of the building. So, like I said, this outdoor habitat is about 2 acres. We are going to be rescuing 6 more chimpanzees this summer. And so we're going to split this habitat, divide it, and expand it on both sides so that we can have 2 groups in the outdoors at once. In this area, which I'll come back to a little bit later, we call the greenhouse. It was their initial outdoor area when they came in 2008, and the next winter we placed panels over it, and it serves as kind of an indoor-outdoor habitat, and it's their favorite space year-round. So I don't know if how well you can see, but that's Burrito with armfuls of food walking bipedally. Each chimp has their own strategy as to what foods they go for first, and whether they sit and eat or go back inside to enjoy their dinner. So I'm gonna head inside so you can see a little bit there. So the initial building was the greenhouse, and then what you're seeing here, and we expanded starting in 2018 with phase 1, what we call phase 1 of the construction. We needed more space for humans and to expand our veterinary services. So I'm going to start in here with the clinic, and this is Anthony Denise. He is the health and behavior coordinator.
Hi, everyone.
Can you hear Anthony? Yeah. Okay.
Welcome to our vet clinic. Obviously, we try not to bring the chimps into the clinic too often. We try to do as much of our veterinary care using cooperative training methods as we can. But sometimes it's inevitable and we need to bring them in for an exam. So we have everything here that we need to have a safe anesthetic procedure with the chimpanzee. We have some really cool modern diagnostics equipment, like ultrasound, X-ray, things like that, Cascade EKGs. And then we have some space for in-house diagnostics, just to kind of keep tabs on their health on a regular basis. We have things like supplements and other medications, just to treat temporary conditions and some chronic conditions like Burrito's heart condition. Yeah, so that's the vet clinic.
Yeah, thank you. So we are not really big enough to have a full-time veterinarian, so we contract a veterinarian locally, and she's worked with the chimps for many years now, and we're with the chimpanzees who were at Central Washington before that. Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about kind of our team of medical professionals?
Yeah, so currently, Dr. Aaron comes in on a part-time basis, as Diana said, and she's kind of like our kind of guiding one who manages the conditions, and then the care staff are the ones who administer meds, do training that helps us to do things with the chimps while they're alert in their own enclosures, in order to not have to bring them in the clinic. And we're planning on adding a vet tech to the team very soon, which will be awesome. And we also have like veterinarians and vet techs from the community, and even some human health professionals come in, and they can help us when we have like a targeted need for a specialist for a procedure. So it's really nice to have that network around us as well.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna head into the enrichment room, and I'll tell Chad to shout so he can hear you, so you can hear him. So Chad is our enrichment coordinator, and he got his bachelor's degree at Arizona State University, where he, well, maybe you can explain what you did while you were there at ASU.
At ASU, I studied the Gombe chimpanzees using photogrammetry. Essentially, instead of darting the chimpanzees in the wild, it's a way to non-invasively get their measurements, how big they're getting, how fast they're growing, and things like that. And then I moved here to attend the graduate program at Central Washington University, where I currently study gestural communication in chimpanzees. And I interned here and then been volunteering here for about 2 years before I was hired as a staff member.
All right. Can you guys hear all that? Okay, great. So Chad's going to talk a little bit about what he does here with the enrichment. This is our enrichment room, which was part of our expansion. We needed more space for toys and puzzles and things like that.
So as the enrichment coordinator, what I do is I plan out the enrichment from day to day for the chimpanzees. Essentially what this tries to help do is alleviate these things and alleviate things such as boredom and mentally stimulate them. Because we here fully understand that they are not wild chimpanzees and they cannot just go out for miles and miles a day. So we try to do the best that we can to mentally stimulate them through things like food puzzles. So tonight is actually these, which is fire hose nuts, which put a few nuts in them, tie them up, and the chimpanzees will have to untie them to receive the nuts. Some other ones include raisin boards, which tries to replicate natural chimpanzee behaviors, such as fishing for food. Yeah, these are some of the food puzzles that we have here in the enrichment room. We also have their daytime enrichment, which are non-food based items that just give the chimpanzees an opportunity to interact with if they feel so. What we found is Brito really likes wooden toys, Jamie really likes boots, and Foxy really loves dolls. In fact, if you look over here, he just received a lot of dolls from donors of Foxy's favorite dolls, to include Dora the Explorer and Strawberry Shortcake. And we also have books here for Jamie, because Jamie does like books, and when we're not here, we do have a book of all her favorite characters' shoes.
I'm
So
sorry.
it looks, yeah, it looks like, it sounds like some people are having trouble hearing.
Yeah, I'm hearing him fine, so I don't know, do any of the techs know what might be happening? Is it a setting on people's computers?
I could try just doing the phone audio too. Can you hear too, Ashton?
Yeah, I can hear. I just have been adjusting the sound on my computer. So when like it's you talking, Diana, I'll turn it down a little bit. But when it's other people talking, I turn it up. But it might be helpful to try to adjust the phone audio. But that is a tip for everybody else that's having difficulties hearing, to adjust per speaker.
Yeah, let me just try using my phone audio instead of my earbuds.
That got worse. That got worse.
Let me try this. Hang on just a second. Okay, how about now? Can you hear that? Okay, so Chad was just talking about the individual enrichment that we give the chimps. So Jamie's super into books. Foxy loves dolls. We have some slinky lovers. Actually, if you go to our blog, we post videos every day, and today's blog is a fantastic video of Honeybee and Willie Bee with slinky enrichment. So yeah, what else did you want to tell us about food puzzles or enrichment, or how you do the enrichment program here?
So with food puzzles, what we try to do is try to promote natural behaviors with the chimpanzees. That includes, as I mentioned before, with the raisin boards, the chimpanzee behavior of fishing for food. We also have other things such as PVC tubes and dipper tubes for them.
Um, Essentially, what the food puzzle is meant to do is to kind of even mentally stimulate them more so, but with a food reward at the end for them if they could figure it out. Some of them are very unique in the way that they figure out things, such as PVC tubes. Usually we take one of these tubes and smear peanut butter or mashed banana inside of them and provide the chimpanzees with a chopstick. Honeybee actually decided the chopstick was insufficient for her, and one day had one of these and just kind of took the PVC tube and just stuck it all the way in, and it turned into like a peanut butter lollipop for her. So that's her preferred method.
Yeah, so the others, we obviously do a ton of laundry here. We give all the chimps blankets, which is their primary nesting material. Yeah, was there anything else you wanted to talk about, Chad?
Not that I can think of.
All right, so I'm going to head down the hall, and we're gonna talk to JB. So JB is the other co-director at the sanctuary. He and I met in grad school at Central Washington University in 1998, and we then went on to work at the Fauna Foundation in Canada and did some other stuff in between, and then came here about a month before the chimps came, the first group of chimps came, and then we became co-directors somewhere around 2013, 2014. Yeah, so JB is going to talk a little bit about our expansion and what we're doing here, and this is Honeybee. So super intelligent, energetic chimpanzee, and we're very excited to be giving her more space soon. So she lives with Willoughby and Maeve, and they came from a sanctuary that is actually closing down, basically has closed down, and it was one of the oldest sanctuaries in the country, and they had over 400 animals, including 42 chimpanzees there, and closed down in 2019. And we were luckily in the place to be able to take in 3 chimps at the time and 6 more later this year. And we're working with a larger group to be able to place the remaining chimps. There's 32 total still there. So JB.
Yeah, so let's go into the new building here.
So this is a space that we haven't let the chimps in yet. Actually, the floors were just done, so we're just walking on them for the first time, which is very exciting.
Yeah, so I think as Diana probably mentioned, we're expecting 6 more chimps in June. When we started construction, we didn't know exactly who would be coming here. It's pretty hard to build for a group of chimps when you don't know who's going to be in that group, how many chimps. So originally we planned this as one large playroom. We decided that we needed some extra flexibility. So we split it into 2. That will help with introductions. Our hope is to integrate the 3, Willoughby, Honeybee, and Maeve, with the 6 chimps that will be arriving in June. And as Diana mentioned, we're weeks away from having these playrooms ready for the 3 to move into. We still have to add all of the hammocks and benches and fire hose vines and everything, but we're getting close. So just quickly, I'll show you kind of how we design these things. One of the things we know that chimps really like is elevated space. So we build these tall, 20-foot tall playrooms. And we really like to focus on usable space. And so, the bars across the ceiling serve to keep the chimps inside, but also they allow the chimps to brachiate across the entire ceiling and use every inch of this space. So I'll show you upstairs.
These stairs, the chimps will likely just use the handrails to get up and down, but it's really nice for the humans to have proper stairs.
So there'll be these 2 playrooms with these tree-like climbing structures in the middle. And then our next step, right now our welders are working on the greenhouse, which will be done in a couple of months. If you look out this way, you can see Willie Bee and Maeve in the chute that connects this building to the outdoor area. And then if you look behind them, you'll see some of the chimps out foraging on the 2-acre area. So this area here will be the greenhouse. I think Diana mentioned we didn't intend the other enclosure to be a greenhouse, but when we put the panels on it that first winter, we found out how much the chimps love it. And here we chose to go with concrete painted floors. One of the things that we found is chimpanzees that have lived on concrete for as much as 35 years, like some of these chimps have, are really uncomfortable at first on natural substrates. And so when Willie Bee, for example, when we gave him access to the outdoors, he rarely sets foot on grass or dirt. We had to build him a wooden boardwalk just to give him a path to get outside. And so we really focus on taking the chimps, meeting them where they are, and encouraging them to, engage in more species-typical behavior as they become more comfortable. So this area will be very comfortable for these chimps that have lived on concrete for decades. The greenhouses will have a deep mulch, wood chips and bark substrate on top of this drain rock. And then, of course, the 2-acre outdoor areas are grass and bamboo and all sorts of natural substrates.
All right. Yeah, we're very excited about these trees, these kind of artificial trees. So we're going to hang a bunch of fire hose from them kind of to serve as vines. And that way the chimps can go from ceiling to tree to floor to all these different levels. And like JB mentioned, vertical space is really important for chimps. And it took actually quite a lot of thought to try to figure out how we would do this indoors, the bars overhead. So we're pretty excited to see a big group of chimps, a group of 6 living in this space. Yeah, so from here, I actually don't know what time it is.
4:22.
Okay, so I think what we can do is go back to the greenhouse area, and that was half of the dinner that we were giving the 7 chimps, so we can see the serving of the other half, which is the other way that we provide food for them. And I'll walk through the original building so you can see the original playroom, which you can actually see from here. So the windows of the playroom are there. Yeah, and then this is what we call the mezzanine, which was part of the first phase of our construction. Maeve really enjoys this space up here. So obviously, our talk is a little bit different. We were focusing on, I guess, what you could say is applied primatology. So a lot of us did go through the program at Central. Some of us were thinking maybe we'd work in the field someday and be trekking around and following chimpanzees or gorillas or other primates in the wild. And then we found out that there's actually quite a big need for taking care of chimps in captivity. And that need is only increasing. I wrote down some numbers that I'll share with you later, but basically there's more chimpanzees in sanctuaries in the United States than in any other type of facility. And so there's a big need for knowledgeable and educated caregivers like Anthony and Anna. So here's our kitchen area. We keep 2 refrigerators full of fresh produce. That's their primary diet. And dinner is generally all vegetables. And breakfast, which is their favorite, is all fresh fruit. And we also make fruit smoothies for them for breakfast and include a lot of supplements. So this is the original playroom, which we did some modifications to just this last year, some improvements to that. You can see that when it was built, we also had that vertical space in mind. So who am I following for dinner? Okay. Okay. So Anna, as I said before, is the lead caregiver, so she's operating doors. This is a nice space because the chimps can see into the kitchen, so they know when dinner's coming, any meal's coming. I'm ready. There's Negra up there, keeping an eye on things.
Come on, thoughts.
So our doors, I'll just show you really quickly, are remote operated, which we like. It's one of those things that depends on what you're used to, and I know a lot of people who worked in captive settings appreciate manual doors. We find that the remote operation works pretty well for us because you're not kind of fighting against somebody on the other side who's wanting the door to be closed or opened when you're doing the opposite. So this is a closer look at our greenhouse area with what JB was talking about, the wood chip substrate. So this is Foxy. Foxy's the one that likes the dolls. And she, what is she getting there, Anthony?
So these are meds for her arthritis in Gatorade.
So all of our chimpanzees are considered old, really. This is Jamie, who's pant hooting. And we have a number of chimps who are over 40 years old, and we're definitely seeing signs of arthritis with Foxy, Negra, and Burrito in particular. So we're kind of experimenting with different medication right now, and Foxy's getting she's getting gabapentin now. We're doing a gabapentin trial to see how that's working for her.
And then Burrito's heart meds.
So Burrito was diagnosed with a heart condition several years ago and has been on medication ever since. And he's doing really well. It's not unusual for captive primates, captive chimpanzees to have heart conditions. This is Jody down here. Here's a close-up of Jamie eating her grapefruit. So Burrito is the only male in this group, and that is simply because this group of 7 was the last group that was at the biomedical facility. So it wasn't really by design, but just that's the way it was. The group of 6 that are coming this summer, there are 3 females and 3 males. So Jody's sitting on a scale right now, and Anthony's going to see if he can get a weight on her.
Maybe when her toes stop.
So we call Negra the queen of the group, partly because of her age, but also just because of her attitude. So you can see she's clapping for her next serving, trying to get the service to be a little more quick.
2 stars.
So I am definitely happy to take questions. We don't have to wait until the end if there are people who want to ask me anything.
If anyone wants to type a question, or oh, here I have one right here. Jessica would like to know, how do you supplement the small amount of protein meat they would normally get in their diet in the wild?
Yeah, so for protein, we do still give them primate chow, which is a commercially made primate biscuit. It's what their primary diet was before coming here. They also get seeds and nuts, and peanut butter is a favorite of everybody. Everybody loves peanut butter, so some of the food puzzles have peanut butter in them. And Anna has pet chickens, so sometimes they get hard-boiled eggs too.
And Ashton is wondering if you can explain to everyone how you communicate to with the chimpanzees.
Yeah, so this situation with the speaker, I can barely hear you, but I think the question was, how do we communicate with the chimps?
Yes.
So we obviously speak to them in English, and the chimps in this group, they grew up in a laboratory environment, which included kind of nursery rearing. So really they were raised in a human type environment for a few years. They've been around humans their entire lives, so they know quite a bit of English and understand probably more than we realize. And then we also do communicate with them in their own language too. So we food grunt. Maybe Anthony can demonstrate here. And we, when we're playing with them, we laugh like chimpanzees. Yeah. None of the chimps here who have been taught sign language, and we haven't done that kind of training either. I know that's a question that comes up a lot.
Mariel is wondering what sort of training you do with them, if any.
I'm gonna see if maybe if I put my earbuds in, it will work again, because I cannot quite hear you. Okay, let's try that again.
So Mariel is wondering what sort of training you do with them, if any.
Yeah, so we do positive reinforcement training. We've had a program. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. So we've had a program for the last several years, which really needed some refreshing. So actually just in the last 2 months, we've been training virtually with Margaret Whitaker. She was of Active Environments, and I'm spacing on what her new company is now, but she has worked with positive reinforcement training for years and years, starting with elephants and marine mammals, and has done a lot of work with chimpanzees, and basically comes and trains the humans in positive reinforcement training. And so we're working with her virtually because of COVID. All the staff are participating in that, and it's been really good. So our hope is that we'll be able to do some more medical presentation behaviors and medical collection. Oh, Anthony's showing me what her company is. Creative Animal Behavior Solutions is her company. So most of the chimps will present arms. Some of the chimps will present for injections, which is really nice. That's one of the most difficult things with working with chimps in captivity is when they do need medical procedures, they have to be anesthetized, and having to dart a chimp is pretty traumatic, both for the chimp and for the human doing it. So if you can train for chimps to present their arm and just take an injection, it's just much better for everybody. We want to train Burrito to present his chest so we can do some imaging without having him be anesthetized. So that's kind of one of our goals. He's really great at presenting. It's just the holding part that's challenging for him.
Jenna is wondering, will the incoming 6 chimps potentially be introduced to this group of 7, or will they only meet Maeve, Honeybee, and Willie Bee?
So our initial plans are for them to integrate with Maeve, Willie Bee, and Honeybee, and we're hopeful that that will work out. You know, you just never know with chimpanzees. And then down the line, who knows? You know, obviously, we've been so amazed that the 7 are still here and alive and well and doing great, even well into their 40s now. But, you know, certainly we're going to lose chimps at some point, and the groups might change over the years.
Juliet is wondering, when you give the dolls as enrichment, do you remove the small parts like shoes? Do the chimps ever eat the smaller enrichment items? And is your enrichment program goal-based?
Yeah, those are good questions. JB's here with me too, so I'm gonna hand him an earbud and he can join me in answering. So we do remove some of the smaller parts. We actually have a gauge of if it's what is it? If it's larger than a raisin, then it's generally considered to be okay. You know, it's really so individual. I know some groups of captive chimps don't have a lot of issues with chewing on things and ingesting things. We used to give a lot of kind of necklaces with beads on them, and then we discovered that Annie was ingesting them, so we don't do that anymore. So it's really a lot of individually based precautions in that regard. Rubber is something that we can't really give any of the chimps because Jamie will chew on it and eat it. And our enrichment program is kind of a mix of goal-based and just generalized enrichment. Certainly, we emphasize socialization, and which is why we're very excited to be getting 6 more chimps, and hopefully that group of 3 will be in a larger social group, which is really obviously very important for chimpanzees. And we also have, you know, these chimps, like I was saying, they grew up around humans, and so a lot of their socialization is with the humans as well. And then structural enrichment is very important, as we were talking about in the expansion. So hopefully that answered that question.
Jacqueline is wondering, how do you control reproduction?
Yeah. So we have 2 males, Burrito in this group, and then Willie B in the other group, and both were vasectomized before coming to the sanctuary, and we've double checked that that's still working by collecting samples. It's not unusual for chimps to just not mate in captivity, so we actually don't see mating behavior here, which you know, is potentially unfortunate, but is not uncommon for chimps that were reared in a pretty unnatural environment. They just don't actually learn to mate. But we do make sure that we're not going to bring any young chimps into the sanctuary.
Jessica's wondering, is there a social hierarchy in terms of which chimp gets fed first? Does the queen always get first dibs?
There is a hierarchy, certainly. Actually, there might be a little bit of a demonstration of that right now. This is Missy, who's reaching out to Annie up there. So Missy and Annie are best friends, but Missy outranks Annie in all situations. So Missy tends to keep Annie in her place a little bit. And then in terms of serving and the order that we serve in, this came up a lot with the new 3. So Willie B had some dominance behaviors during serving, and he was intimidating Maeve and Honeybee, and we did some positive reinforcement training so that he learned to station. And so what we're actually doing more now is serving Honeybee and Maeve first, and then he knows if he stays in his place, then he'll get his food plus a little extra food. And that's worked out pretty well for that group. Negra is actually the slowest eater. And so sometimes we do serve her first, but it does vary a little bit. And in this group, Jamie's actually the boss of the group. So she's kind of the prime minister, if you consider Negra the queen.
Caroline is asking, due to some of their histories with biomed, how does that shape how you interact with them as caregivers, training medical exams, reducing stress, etc.?
Yeah, so in terms of, I know this wasn't the direction of the question, but in terms of our safety, they were used in hepatitis vaccine testing, so they were never given hepatitis. So we're not concerned about disease transmission to us. Yeah, just a second. So often meal times are completely casual and there's no kind of screaming like this, but it's kind of nice to see real chimp behavior. So there's sometimes just jockeying of, you know, who gets what scraps at the end of a meal. So that's what that was all about. And now I forgot what question I was answering.
How does their history with biomed, how does that shape how you interact with them, training medical exams, reducing stress?
Right. So they obviously had a lot of history with being anesthetized, being darted in the lab. And so that's why that's even more important for us to continue with our positive reinforcement training, to get them comfortable with needles and with other kind of visuals that might remind them of their past. They've been here now for almost 13 years. So I think their pasts are fairly far behind them for a lot of them. Negra, the queen, when she first came, we participated in a study that a psychologist and a primatologist put together that gave surveys to the caregivers that would indicate whether the chimps had signs of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. And Negra had signs of both. And she certainly was really reactive when she first came. So she would turn around and put her back up to the caging for us to groom, and then she would scream and kind of freak out. Annie also had a lot of anxiety. She would throw herself on the ground. And those things have gotten a lot better over the years. And I think a lot of it is just time and them being able to learn to trust us and knowing what the system is here and getting comfortable with the routine and the humans that are here. And we let them, you know, in some cases, display dominance towards us. So if they want to spit at us, that's totally fine. You know, we figure we probably deserve it, whatever we did to wrong them in that moment. And that redirected aggression can sometimes be helpful.
Raymond is wondering if they have a favorite food.
Yeah, they are all pretty individual in their likes. I would say overall, one of their favorite foods is sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes is a big favorite. Right now, what they're doing is eating night bags. So this is Jody with her night bag. And that's something that we started the first night they were here. And it's a paper bag that has nuts and seeds and little bits of popcorn, and you can see it takes them a while to kind of go through it and pick the things out that they like the most. So that's one of the favorites too. And certainly for Negra, she would not let us forget to give night bags at the end of the day.
Robin was asking do you plan on doing a fission fusion kind of thing so that the various chimpanzee groups can utilize all spaces at the sanctuary?
You know, we would love to be able to do that and to be able to rotate the chimps into different spaces. The way the building is set up is not necessarily ideal for that. So I think we're just going to have to put it into use and see how things go. Probably not, but we'll see.
Jenna is just observing how how is Jody's back not hurting from standing and eating like that? What does she do for exercise?
Yeah, we had years ago a book that one of our caregivers put together of yoga poses, and Jody was like featured in almost all of them. So
I just have a question on the integration when you get the rest of the chimpanzees or the other group that you're getting. What happens if they don't integrate?
Yeah. So we had some direct experience with that not too long ago. So we attempted to integrate the 3 with this group of 7, and that was not successful. Ultimately, there was some pretty intense fighting that happened, and one incident that resulted in pretty severe injuries to Burrito. I mean, he's recovered fine and actually is he's the most playful he's ever been. But it took him a while to recover, and we decided that those 2 groups just weren't compatible. So, you know, we always knew that was a possibility. There's some statistics that say that about 80% of integrations are successful. So that sounded pretty good to us. But that does mean 20% are not successful, which is what we faced. So that is why we divided the new areas into 2. So there's 2 playrooms and 2 greenhouses, and a way to keep 3 groups in this facility completely separate if we need to.
And And oh, I think you already answered what their favorite food was. It sounds like they all have different choices, or they all have their own opinions.
They certainly do, yeah. So like Foxy is a big fan of all things fruit, and we've been working over the years with getting her to eat more vegetables. Sometimes I sneak kale into her smoothies in the morning. But yeah, they all have kind of different favorites. Today, Anthony bought a bunch of parsley to see how they like that, and it was only Missy that chose to eat it.
And is there anything special that you have to do once you get the new chimps that have just come from biomedical research? Like, is there anything specific you need to do because they're coming from such a different environment?
Well, this group of 7, when they came in 2008, they hadn't actually been used in research for a number of years. And I guess I mentioned earlier that I had these numbers written down. So there aren't any chimps that are actively used in biomedical research right now in the US. And when we started graduate school in 1998, I remember writing papers about how there were 2,000 to 2,500 chimps in biomedical research. And right now, there are 289 individuals living in laboratories still, but they're not actively being used. And that is for a variety of reasons. There was a lot of pressure that was put on the laboratories to stop using chimps in research. There was some legislation that was introduced that never got too far. And then in 2015, the Fish and Wildlife Service finally uplisted chimpanzees. So all chimpanzees are now considered endangered. And that means that anyone who wants to use them in research has to show that the research is going to directly benefit them as an endangered species. And so there is no active biomedical research that's happening right now and probably won't. So all of the chimps, that the remaining 289 will hopefully eventually go to sanctuaries. So right now I just looked this up today. So there's a website called Project Chimp Care that's part of the Lincoln Park Zoo, and they track where captive chimps live. It was started by Steve Ross. So there are 678 chimps right now in accredited sanctuaries, and we are one of the smaller ones. So there's Chimp Haven has over 330 chimps. Save the Chimps in Florida, which was one of the biggest ones before Chimp Haven, has about 230 chimps, and we're going to have 16. So it's almost like a whole different world. But there are more chimpanzees living in sanctuaries than there are in any other type of facility, including zoos. So for people who are looking to work directly with chimpanzees, kind of sanctuaries are the place to be for sure. So the chimps that are coming are from a sanctuary that closed down and was not accredited, and had a lot of problems over the years, including some issues with fire. They're near Los Angeles, and they had to evacuate the animals a couple of times, and it's not in an ideal location. So we've never dealt with chimps coming directly from laboratories to us.
Jesse is interested as to if you will be hiring more volunteers anytime soon, when COVID stops or gets better.
Yeah, this whole year has been crazy. So actually, maybe JB could talk a little bit about our relationship with Central Washington University and the intern program there.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I know Diana mentioned that we all came through Central Washington University at different points. That relationship has always been really important to us, and so that continues now. So Central has a great program for both bachelor's and master's degrees in primate behavior and ecology. They also have a captive care certificate for people that are looking to pursue a career in a sanctuary or a zoo as a caregiver. And so part of that involves an internship. So the students get the kind of academic advising and curriculum through the university, and then they come work with us and get the hands-on experience, which number one, hopefully gives them a sense of whether they want to pursue a career in this or not, because you know, most people that are interested in chimps, once you're around them, you're hooked and you want to take care of them as long as you can. But they're a little wild. They're not for everybody. And also just gives you that experience that you can take to, you know, when you're applying for jobs at zoos and sanctuaries. So we're looking forward to having our interns back when, you know, the pandemic allows us to. We also have a volunteer program for community members. So you don't have to be a student to volunteer at the sanctuary. You just have to be able to, you know, care about the chimps, stay safe, and you know, commit to a certain number of shifts.
Is there a certain time, do you think, that you'll feel comfortable having volunteers again or interns again, or is that just kind of still up in the air like everything else is for people nowadays?
Yeah, it is a matter of constant debate amongst our staff and our board of directors that oversees the care of the chimps. So we are really hoping that by fall we'll be able to bring interns and volunteers back. But that's going to depend on, you know, what we learn about transmission by vaccinated people, you know, what our case positivity rate looks like in the community, and a number of other factors. So we really can't say at this point, but we're really hopeful that by fall things start to look a little bit more normal around here.
Yeah, and we have a committee of our board. It's made up of board members as well as outside experts that's called the Direct Care Committee, and it serves as kind of a policy oversight committee for issues related to direct care of the chimps, and also they review any research proposals. So I think that's something we didn't really talk about before either. I can make JB talk some more about that.
Sure. Yeah, we also, in addition to the intern program at the university, we do allow some student research. We're very selective in the types of research that we consider. So because our mission is just to take care of these chimps, the research has to have strong potential to help us make better decisions when we care for them. So we've had a few master students do their thesis research here. Most recently, we had a student, Jake, looking at some of the social networks within this group of 7, with the hope that that could help us, you know, not only care for them better, but inform integrations, which, as Diana mentioned, you know, did not work out for this group, but it was still a worthwhile endeavor. We looked at the effects of visitors on the chimps' behavior. We're not open to the public, but we do have donors come out to see what they're supporting. We want to make sure that that's not having a negative impact on the chimps, and so we had a student look at that. And thankfully, the way that we do those visits with our small groups of donors did not have any impact of consequence on the chimps. Years ago, we had a student look at how, you know, when this sanctuary was built, we didn't have a 2-acre enclosure for the chimps. And so she looked at their behavior pre and post construction of that 2-acre enclosure to see how their behavior would change, and to try to provide some evidence that giving chimps larger, more complex, more dynamic spaces like open top outdoor enclosures, that has a positive influence on a positive effect on their behavior, which she did demonstrate.
Ashton is asking if you can talk a little bit about the rattlesnake procedure that you have for anyone that's not aware.
Yeah. So what month was that? June? Early June? So we have rattlesnakes here on the sanctuary property, and have, you know, they live here. So we don't tend to see them except in the really hot summer months. And we actually, I don't know if you can see it from here, but we have a rattlesnake defense. It's just a short fence that is up against the electric fence, and that has been really useful in preventing rattlesnakes from getting into the enclosures. However, one apparently got in, and the chimps have, there's a lot of other kinds of snakes here too, and when the chimps here encounter a snake, what they want to do is just get rid of it, and so they'll actually approach it and try to shoo it away, and that's what we think happened with Burrito. So he was bit by a rattlesnake, and it was pretty terrifying. He started having neurological symptoms. So we discovered very quickly that the Ellensburg hospital, the human hospital, has antivenin, and we were able to acquire it really quickly. And our vet came up and we gave him antivenin, and he recovered really well from that. And now we keep it on site. $24,000 worth of antivenin on site.
Wow.
It's very expensive.
I got a couple more here before we wrap up. Do you sense from Jacqueline, do you sense that the chimps prefer to spend time in open areas due to the trauma of being kept in locked cages for a long time?
So I might see if JB has a differing opinion, but I think it's actually usually the opposite. They tend to want to be where they are, that's familiar and comfortable to them. So a lot of times chimps who have grown up in small enclosures with concrete floors, that's where they're most comfortable. And you see that, you know, in sanctuaries that are in cold climates and sanctuaries that are in warm climates and sanctuaries that have beautiful forested habitats and wonderful outdoor islands. A lot of chimps will just feel more comfortable when they're inside, which is unfortunate, but also understandable because that's what they're used to. So I think JB mentioned earlier, Willoughby, the chimps at Wildlife Waystation didn't have an actual outdoor area with natural substrate, and so none of those three are comfortable at this point walking on natural ground.
And then Robin was going back to the COVID, talking about COVID, that there's a new COVID vaccination that the San Diego Zoo has administered to some of their great apes, and was wondering if it's being considered there, or if the chimps can be given a COVID vaccine, a human COVID vaccine at some point.
Right. Do you want to take that on?
Yeah, so we have discussed it, and at this point, it's not under consideration in the near future. It is still a pretty experimental vaccine for use in non-human animals. We right now feel like we can protect the chimps well enough through our staff health protocols that they're not at any great risk, and we'd like to learn more about these vaccines and any potential effects before we go that route. But down the road, it is definitely something that we would consider.
Yeah, it's also not clear to us how available it is. I know we saw the same articles, and with interest we're reading them about the San Diego Zoo and their vaccinations, and I don't know how widespread that is, or if it was just them.
And then it looks like Jenna and Ashton put some information in the chat about Wildlife Waystation, also about the research that Jake had done at the sanctuary. If anyone wants those articles or that information, that is in the chat. Does anyone have any questions I missed or anything else before we wrap up, or anything else that you want to chat about, Diana, before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Oh, I should mention we also have 4 cattle. I don't want to leave them out. So we have 3 cows and a steer that are rescued as well. And working in a sanctuary, there is never a dull moment. So, you know, you might be in the office for an hour and taking care of the chimps for another hour and then going out and feeding the cows.
Thank you very much. Your website is Chimp Sanctuary. There it is. Somebody just put it in the chat. Ashton just put it in the chat. I was just going to ask. So that's the website for Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest for anyone that is interested. Thank you very much, Diana and JB and everyone else there. Very, very nice way to end our African Day of Apes, to see some live ones in person. Almost.
Yeah, thank you. We are really excited to be part of this. And again, congratulations on putting this all on. I think it's going to have to be an annual thing, right?
Sounds like it. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. That will conclude our African Ape Day, and we will start at 10 a.m. tomorrow for Asian Ape Day, or Asian Primate Day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.